Alright, so take a look at this snake. This is my male bamboo ball python from last year. Look at how beautiful the bamboos are. Really good looking snakes. And if you're looking for a pet snake, maybe you're at a reptile show and looking on YouTube for some videos, you're probably wondering what is the maximum size potential of a fully grown adult ball python. And that's what I'm going to cover in this video. I want to show you some of my biggest ball pythons and kind of give you some insights as far as how big some of these snakes can get. So I'd say ball pythons are probably the #1 pet snake, I dare say, because they get to a big size where they're impressive, but they don't get too big to where one person can't handle them. As a matter of fact, they're so peaceful and they don't really get that big, so a lot of kids can handle them perfectly fine with parental supervision, of course. But I would say there's really two factors when it comes to the potential size of ball pythons. Number one, I would say they're really variable based on the amount of food that you put into the snake. And a snake can look this size and be several years old, or it could be this size and a year old. It's kind of deceiving. And as a matter of fact, if I gave you the snake, you really couldn't tell by the size how old this snake is. And it's because some people feed them heavier and some people feed them lighter. As a matter of fact, I went to this guy's house and picked up a free snake on Craigslist, and they sold me one that was a couple years old and it was smaller than this, and they were feeding it like one mouse once a month. And let me tell you, if you want to keep your snakes really small, you could feed them once a month. As a matter of fact, I saw a guy with a reticulated python feeding once a month, and that thing looked like a super dwarf, and it was 3 years old. It was pretty amazing. So really, I'd say there's a huge variability based on the size of the rodent you feed them and how often you feed that snake. So that's number one. And if you really pound a lot of food into them, then I have some here that I try to feed as much as possible, and they can get to a really impressive size, but not too big for one person to handle. So let me show you some of those snakes. I'm going to pull them out, and I'll start with my biggest snake. All right, so that last snake was a male bamboo, 1 year old, and this one happens to be a male bamboo that is 6 years old. I had to look at the tag to look at the date to figure out how old he was. I didn't even realize this guy is 6 years old, and look at how big he is. He is a beautiful snake. Look at that. And he's not, I'd say he's probably maybe 4 to 5 feet long. And the bamboos are awesome because they really keep the intensity and the color. Just look at how beautiful that snake is. That's just amazing. And the other thing, normally you won't see a male ball python this big. And I think the reason this one is so big is because the bamboo morph really has an aggressive appetite. And this thing will eat almost every single time. It's fasted a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it's always been on food and always gained weight really fast. And as a matter of fact, he's looking pretty thin now. He's usually even thicker than this. So this is kind of my mascot that I use on all my videos. He's a really cool snake. Definitely not my biggest ball python, but probably my biggest male. So let me show you one of my really big females. All right, so take a look at this beast of a snake. This is by far one of my biggest females. Look at how big she is. I'd say she's bigger than that bamboo. She's, maybe she's, I don't know, maybe over 5 feet. She's a really big snake, and this is probably the biggest I have ever seen a ball python. This is a really, really pretty large snake. And the interesting thing about this snake is I'm pretty sure with this specific snake right here, I can definitely feel she is a lot heavier than that bamboo ball python. She's got some weight to her. And I would say the interesting thing about this snake is some people say that there's different localities of ball pythons, and there's one called the sub-Saharan locality of ball pythons that gets a lot bigger than other ball pythons. And I would say, if I was a betting man, I'd say this is probably a sub-Saharan locality ball python. You could tell just by the head and the girth and the length. I mean, if you look at the head on the ball python, that's I don't know if you can see it here, but the head just seems a lot bigger than your typical ball python. It just seems like it's a lot bigger. If I can get her into focus here. So I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but if you look at the head of the ball python compared to the head of other ball pythons, it just seems like a bigger head. As a matter of fact, I have a lemon blast that I think is from the same locality that is a really big snake. And I actually pet her up this year, and I don't think she's gonna lay any eggs. She just doesn't have the size that she looks like she's building eggs. And I wanna show you that one next, but I thought I'd just show you this one. This girl actually just laid eggs about 2 months ago, and she laid a clutch of 13 eggs. It was a lot of eggs, and you should have saw her before she laid those eggs. She was even bigger, and I actually weighed her. She was close to 5,000 grams when I actually, right before she laid eggs. So that was kind of her maximum. And then after she laid eggs, she started pounding some really big rats. So she got a lot of her weight back. I'm thinking she'll probably be ready to breed again this coming year, which would be pretty exciting. But this is definitely by far one of my biggest females. And this one happens to be not just a normal, this is 100%, oh! Oh, all right. Come on now. She's tearing me up. Whew. This one happens to be 100% het caramel albino. You know, a snake this big, I probably wouldn't put it around the neck of kids because it's a little bit powerful for kids. But you know, she is a really big snake. She's getting into some trouble here. So let me show you my lemon blast. That is a pretty big snake. All right, too. That was quite the struggle with that one. Let's see if I can show you this one without getting in too much trouble. This one is a really big one. Look at the size of this big old lemon blast. She is a pretty big snake too. She's, you know, I paired her up this year and it doesn't really look like she's got enough girth to really lay eggs. I did an ultrasound and it kind of looked like she was building some follicles, but at this point in the game, I don't think she's gonna actually go this year. And this one, I actually thought there was a giant gene in there. When I first started out, I was like, hey, look at this snake, it has a giant gene. And then people kind of started, you know, leaving comments and talking about the sub-Saharan localities, that they're bigger ball pythons. And sure enough, look at, you definitely tell this one around my neck compared to the bamboo is definitely a bigger snake. This is, you know, I'm not sure exactly which one's the biggest, because it really depends on the season. If they're full of eggs, they're really heavy, and then right after they lay, they lose a lot of weight if they lay a lot of eggs. And then as they eat rats, it's like they're always changing the size. And as a matter of fact, I have one that is it's pretty old and it's been fasting for almost a year. It's a lemon blast, and I want to show you that one just to give you a difference in perspective as far as the potential size of a ball python. And that one, I don't believe, is from the locality that these are from. And take a look at the head on this one, and then we'll compare it to the other one. If you can actually see the head, I think the head on this one is even bigger than the last one. If you look at the size of the head, look at how big that head is. It's a pretty big head for a ball python. This one's always been a little bit skittish, I don't know why, but it's a really beautiful snake, and she's been a really good breeder. She laid a bunch of eggs last year. I don't know if she's gonna go this year. But let me show you this other snake. It's another lemon blast that's been fasting, and it's not from the locality that these last two were from. All right, so I just looked at the date on that last ball python. It is actually 9 years old. That's a 9-year-old ball python, and I imagine she won't get any bigger than that. That's pretty much the max size of the biggest ball python that I have ever seen. Pretty much, you know, as far as, you know, most people, I'd say if they have ball pythons, they won't get nearly that big. And take a look at this girl. I'm not even exactly sure how old this one is because I bought it age unknown, and I would say it's probably one of the biggest as far as the non-locality specific, you know, the other localities. And if you take a look at the head on this one, you can see it is a smaller head, and you can really tell the difference between the size of the head on some of these snakes, and kind of get an idea of where the localities, you know, where it comes from as far as the different regions of West Africa is where they originate from. So essentially this one is, you can tell it's really thin, it hasn't eaten in a long time, and that is really, You know, sometimes they go off of food for a long time. This one, I'd say it's almost, I don't think it's had more than maybe 1 or 2 rats in a full year. So it's pretty incredible that they can go that long and still maintain a pretty decent body condition. But you see, it's not really as plump as the other ones, but it doesn't really look like it's starving. It's amazing. These snakes can go so long without food. It is pretty amazing. But I would say, you know, on average, if you're looking for a pet and you're looking for just a regular ball python, this is pretty much the maximum size that you're looking at as far as, you know, the maximum size potential of an adult ball python. All right, so I want to throw in one more snake, and that is this albino female. This is pretty much as big as your ball pythons will ever get. This is a female, gets a little bit bigger than a male. This one's got some hefty weight to it. This one is 9 years old, so she probably won't get any bigger than this. She's been a really good breeder. She laid some eggs last year. She's had this year off, and she's been eating really well. That's why she's got some good weight to her. And, you know, she probably won't get any longer or any thicker than this. I would say this is probably as big as you can expect your ball python to get. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.